Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to some news around the NBA, Riker, as we always do when there's a player that's interesting, could fit in well with the Toronto Raptors. We always break down their potential fit with this team, and right now a guy that's sort of flown under the radar in his NBA career because of injuries and whatnot, Marvin Bagley. His dad came out on Twitter and demanded a trade from the Sacramento Kings. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors are a team that have struggled in their front court and could definitely use a guy that could be a rim protector and have a lot of potential in the future. If you want to break down the tweet and the stuff, it's really interesting. He could be a really interesting guy to go after as a Toronto Raptor GM or Masai Ujiri.
Yeah, Marvin Bagley the third, Ben. And this was his father. He has a long, I mean, neither of us follow the Sacramento Kings religiously, but apparently he has a long history since Marvin Bagley was drafted to the Kings of kind of sending out disparaging tweets, particularly against Coach Luke Walton, which I find particularly hilarious. But his most recent tweet was directly at Sacramento Kings saying, "Please," in all caps, "trade Marvin Bagley III ASAP. Love, Coach Bagley," i.e. his father. Now, as you said, Marvin Bagley, he has been pretty injury prone, I guess, to start his NBA career. He's putting up not amazing numbers. True shooting percentage is only like 42% or something like that. 30% from three, 11 points per game. Like his stats are kind of mediocre, I guess, for a 6'11 guy. But remember, injury prone, kind of, to start his career, and he's on the Sacramento Kings of all teams. But this one I find could actually be particularly interesting for the Raptors, who kind of struggle for depth at the 4 and 5 position, Ben.
Yeah, no, 1000%. Marvin Bagley is a guy, as you said, the stats aren't eye-popping. The performance in his NBA career, especially due to injuries, isn't the most amped up, won't amp up a lot of Raptors fans. That's the only way to put it. He's not a sexy name as of right now. The thing he's most known for, honestly, is the fact that he was drafted one spot ahead of Luka Doncic, and that meme that Vlade Divac said he's a better player and better fit. Clearly, that's not the case. Clearly, he has no chance of being better than Luka Doncic, but I do think he has the potential to really take off in the NBA and be a strong big man. As you mentioned, he's a strong shooter. He can shoot from the mid. He's able to extend his range out a little bit from three. Hasn't really developed at a tremendous rate, but a solid, has the potential to really expand his range, be a modern NBA big. He's mobile in the defensive end. He's a lefty. He finishes around the rim, and he gives me sort of similar vibes to Chris Bosh in the way that he worked in the post and was able to score in the mid-range and was really smooth. And obviously, Chris Bosh, Toronto Raptors legend. I feel like Marvin Bagley, that would be high standards to sort of compare him to, but the fact that we're currently running Aaron Baines, Alex Len as our main two guys at the center position, and Chris Boucher has really thrived as being a power forward. I would really like to see the Toronto Raptors see if we can maybe get a stronger five and push Baines to the bench and let Boucher play his natural position behind Siakam.
Absolutely, and I'm trying to do some quick maths here. It seems like he's only played 81 games now over 3 seasons. This is Marvin Bagley, and he's only started 16 of those. And Ben, again, this is on the Sacramento Kings, who have been woefully mismanaged. Now, I would say they're off to a relatively strong start this season, but when you have shooters around you like Buddy Hield that are hucking up threes, what I think is promising, despite only being a 31% three-point shooter in the 6 games so far, is that he's still getting up 2.2 attempts, and his form doesn't look terrible. And if you look at this guy's highlights in high school and what he was able to do, and I believe he was pushed up a grade to hit the draft a little bit early. I think that's the whole story around him, because he was drafted at the age of 19. I think that he's very young, but already displays the intangible skills that you'd want to develop from the center that would be a little bit more polished, like you said, than Aaron Baines. And I don't know if this kind of trade centered around Marvin Bagley, and we'll discuss who would be involved around that, would make the Raptors a win-now team. But I think it makes them a lot more promising from what I think is the Raptors' biggest weakness in being the front court right now.
Yeah, no, 1000%. We'll pull up a trade. We were actually sent a trade in our Instagram DMs. Who's this from?
Wait, let me, yeah, exactly. Oh, shoot. Let me pull it up. It is from, I'm going to butcher the name pronunciation, so I apologize, Dilraj Santu. He gratefully sent us this, so thank you, sir.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a lot of guys being moved in this one here, but the Toronto Raptors acquired Trevor Ariza and Marvin Bagley. I'll lean out of the way here. But then the Oklahoma City Thunder, they get Bjelica, Jabari Parker, and Patrick McCaw. So three-time champ Patrick McCaw is gone. And then the Sacramento Kings acquired Norman Powell, George Hill, Stanley Johnson, Terrence Davis. A couple things on this trade. George Hill mentioned has been in rumors for different moves. And obviously Norman Powell has struggled. Terrence Davis is a guy that the Raptors would probably like to move on from as of right now, it looks like, because he hasn't been getting much minutes. We're not sure what's happened off the court as of right now, as of recording. But I think this is the amount we'd have to give up for Marvin Bagley, especially where it's coming from the Sacramento Kings. We fleeced them before, and Marvin Bagley, maybe they're a bit higher on him than this trade would suggest, but if we gave up a Norman Powell, who obviously has a lot of potential and has shown a lot last season as a scorer, and a couple of young prospects, Terrence Davis, McCaw, Stanley Johnson, I think that would be a huge win for the Raptors, and I think it's in the realm of possibility, Riker.
Yeah, I think so as well. Now, I need to pull up the actual Sacramento Kings roster as we're speaking of this, because if I'm led to believe they're trading 3 bigs in this, so they'd be in a similar situation where if we're looking at deals centered around Pascal Siakam, which for once this isn't, you would almost need to get 1 or 2 bigs back in return. Otherwise, you're just completely depleting your front court. So while this trade makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, for the Raptors to bring back a big, to maybe unburden a little bit that backup guard position, make sure that you have to play Malachi Flynn, etc. I don't know if it makes 100% sense for the Sacramento Kings, but I don't think Marvin Bagley's trade value is that high. So I think you could get away with trading somebody like Norm, who's maybe has a little bit less trade value now, and get a player like this in return, Ben.
Yeah, Marvin Bagley, obviously, we brought up all the things at the start, but the injury history, the fact that the Sacramento Kings barely even play him when he is healthy, they don't play him the right way, they don't use him, has really tanked his value. And I think the reputation of being the Sam Bowie to Luka's Michael Jordan, obviously a little bit of a hyperbole, but has tanked his value a bit. But Marvin Bagley, I think, in a system, in a Toronto Raptors organization with a Nick Nurse offense that will hopefully get the best out of him, I think he could be a really good fit. And yes, I get what you're saying. This trade specifically might not make sense because they're giving up a lot of bigs. We're not going to dive into the specifics of a Marvin Bagley deal, but I think the value of a guy like Norman Powell, Terrence Davis, a couple of young wing players that can really excite a franchise that has really struggled. And I think if the Sacramento Kings fall off from their hot start, this is a move that they could potentially do. And maybe we could throw in a Len character. Maybe we get a third. I guess he just came from the Sacramento Kings. But even would you even throw in a Boucher in this deal if it meant getting back Marvin Bagley? Because when we look at the types of players that we would have to give up, we're not talking the likes of, as you said, Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Kyle Lowry. They're off the tables. They're non-starters. We're not trading those guys for a Marvin Bagley. But I think if we trade our upper echelon role players, maybe having to throw in a Boucher and a Norman Powell TD, I think that would certainly get that deal done.
You think off of this, what we've seen now from Boucher over the past season, the start of this season having, I believe, 2 20-point games and a 7-block game and being really the only energy guy coming off the bench, it seems, you'd be willing to trade Boucher for a deal with Bagley?
It's a risk. It's a calculated risk you're making because Bagley has shown that oozing potential as a center and at the center position to really be honestly a more solid version of Boucher. And while Boucher has certainly had moments of genius this season where, as you said, the 7-block game and all that sort of stuff, he really only works against certain matchups. And we saw when he played the Philadelphia 76ers, he was unplayable. That guy looked shook being around Dwight Howard. And I feel like in the playoffs, that could be a disadvantage for Boucher, and it's not something we'd really be risking with Marvin Bagley, assuming he's healthy. We're getting other risks with Marvin Bagley, but you look at the ceiling, you look at the ages of those two guys, I think you have to give up a Boucher. The question is, do you give up Boucher, Norm, and TD in a certain deal like that?
Then I don't know if I would give up Boucher in this scenario, and I would be reluctant to think that people in the comment section would agree with you, because I think that people are riding a little bit high on Boucher now. It seems that Fred VanVleet, Boucher, Kyle Lowry to an extent have been the only real solid fixtures of the Raptors team in the 5 games, albeit they're off to a terrible start. So I know something does need to be done, but I would much rather give up a bunch of our guards than Boucher, and that's weird to say, but I'm riding a little. Maybe it's overinflated just because, like you said, the matchups have benefited him. But I think that Boucher has flashed some real brilliance coming off that 4 spot. So if we could bring in a legit 5, have Baines as our backup 5, that'd be a pretty nice team.
Yeah, I think one thing that sparked in my head, and it goes back to an old Sacramento Kings multi-team trade. Do you remember a man by the name of Ed Davis, Ryker?
I do indeed.
And actually, no, this was a Grizzlies trade, not Sacramento Kings. It led to a Sacramento Kings trade, but we were super high on Ed Davis for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks, that guy was balling out, and then we ended up being able to flip him for Rudy Gay. I think Boucher's value is a little bit inflated right now. I'm hoping it maintains. I'm a huge Boucher fan, but the potential of a early 20s guy, because Boucher is an older player, there's not a lot of development he has left going forward. He's, 26, 27? A guy in the likes of Marvin Bagley, who's been in the worst situation you could potentially be in for a young prospect. The Sacramento Kings, it's where you go to die. Your NBA career just goes if you're drafted by them, it seems like. Marvin Bagley, a guy with so much potential coming out of college, has shown sparks of it, and assuming health, could really be an impact player for your team, could really be a guy to change the course of your season. I think it's something you could potentially do. Maybe I'm outweighing the risks of his injury history and stuff with, his potential, but I think the Raptors are in a place right now where you take a risk on a young prospect. And if we can't get a Harden, we can't get a Beal, we can't do any of the big trades we've sort of been talking about in the last couple videos, I feel like it's a safe-ish move. You're not completely gutting your roster for this guy. That could have really high potential upside.
It could. And Ben, I trust you right now. I trust me right now, because we're saying all off season, what would I do if I was Masai Ujiri? I'd let Gasol walk. We thought he was going to Europe anyways. I would give a 1-year, $20 million deal to Ibaka, and I'd go hard after Christian Wood. And what's Christian Wood doing right now for the Houston Rockets? He's putting up unbelievable numbers. Double-double, 20 points and 14 rebounds, I believe, are his averages. He's looking literally like the clone copy, the carbon copy of Anthony Davis. So if we had our way, that would have been our team. We would have no Aaron Baines at the 1 or whoever. We would not have our bigs issue. We'd have Christian Wood. We'd have
Baines at the 1.
No, I said we wouldn't even have to worry about Aaron Baines. But he was our third option. But again, had it gone our way, Serge Ibaka and Christian Wood. That's all I'm saying is, so I trust your judgment call that maybe at the end of the day, you transplant Marvin Bagley III into a better situation, better coaching, better system that could benefit his gameplay. And you give up a guy who's shown a lot of promise, but also a lot of downside because of his size and his recklessness and his lack of IQ at times in Chris Boucher. And maybe that would result in something magical, Ben, that the Raptors have been sorely lacking.
Yeah, and obviously it's tough to give up a Norman Powell in this type of trade because I feel like he'd have to be a part of it as well. But Norman Powell's a guy, he's a free agent at the end of this season. I'm not sure how hyped we are about the class of 2021 free agency right now, but he might be looking for a bag, especially with his performance last. What?
DeMar.
Hey, bring back DeMar, But I think it's a sacrifice, it's a risk, especially if Norman Powell keeps struggling. If he gets back to that level of last season, it makes it a lot tougher, but Norman Powell might be looking for a bag this offseason. Boucher, he got paid a decent amount this summer, but obviously the Raptors have a team option for him. I think it's a risk it's worth taking. A lot of people mentioned this, and we were going to talk about it in our last video, but we want to give it its full time that we really have. We've been going for 14 minutes right now, but let's know what you guys think. Would you guys like to see Marvin Bagley trade to the Raptors? What would you give up for him? Because could be an interesting piece to turn the season around. We'll see what happens with this team going forward. But check out the Instagram, check out the Twitter, check out the TikTok, check out the website. We're plugging everything right now. Ryker's got the dance moves. You gotta bully him into actually doing the dance moves on TikTok. But you have any last words, Ryker?
Yes, at Coach Bagley. The Raptors would graciously accept a trade request involving your son. So let's make it happen. Cheers.